Welcome, everybody. This is another spoiler-free review. We've done this for Shang-Chi. We've done this for Venom 2. So if you want to check those out, feel free to check those out on the channel, especially if you haven't seen the movies yet. But this one is for Eternals. Eternals just came out. We saw it this weekend. We're going to give you our opinion on the movie. We have a few things. We're going to go through the depth of thinking, emotional impact, the authenticity in relation to what is being depicted, wit or cleverness of writing, and originality. Those are our terms that we go through, or those are our basis off of what we give the rating. That is a typical movie review setting. So we're just going to do that. This one again, spoiler-free review for the Marvel movie Eternals that just came out. And let's get started. The first one is depth of thinking. So in a 3-hour movie that tells 2 separate stories, depth of thinking should be pretty deep. Yeah. I think that there were portions of it that I could consider like good depth of thinking, but overall, because the movie tried to tell 2 separate stories, it was basically 2 90-minute stories. It kind of spread itself a little too thin.
Yeah, there was a lot of details throughout both storylines that I don't think were necessarily needed. And so in relation to like the 2
when Hulk shows up and kills Iron Man.
Yeah, well, I was thinking when Thor shows up and just brutally murders Ant-Man.
True.
I can't believe he just sets Mjolnir on top of him. It's just
right. He put Mjolnir up Ant-Man, almost like a mockery of the fans' Ant-Man theory with Thanos. Crazy.
So, I mean, does it make you think could this happen? I guess is that the same criteria? I don't know. I always get some of these.
So when I think of depth of thinking, I think is there ever a moment when I'm sitting there and the movie makes me think about real life? And does the movie make me think about the plot itself, the characters themselves? So both how it makes me think off the movie and on the movie and the universe surrounding the movie. So when it comes to Marvel movies, depth of thinking to me has a big weight because does it make you think about other products? Does it make you think about the character?
So I guess the main conflict throughout the whole thing, I think that was decently depicted when depth of thinking in regards to the struggles the main characters were having.
Agreed.
In regards to so I thought that was done well.
Okay.
I tried.
Yeah, it's hard to do this off, especially like without giving spoilers and to give an honest opinion. But I do think that the primary struggle that the movie makes you think, both in relation to the characters and off, like it does apply to real life aspects. I think the big thing is definitely like the primary struggle of the movie, especially with the main characters. It does make you think, like the idea of the Eternals, right? Is, for those of you that don't know, they are like created by Celestials. We know like that's the basis of the Eternals. They are created by these Celestials, sent to Earth to protect it, that sort of thing. So that's not a spoiler. That's just, that's what the Eternals are.
Right.
It makes you think about, where you come from, like where the Eternals come from. It makes you think about like being given orders and that sort of thing. Like what does it mean to do as you're told?
Yeah, you don't have to always stick to. Sometimes your mission isn't always the best thing. So like if you're told to do something, it could be the best for that person, but not the best for you and the people around you.
Exactly. Like my brother was in the Marines. I think it applies really well. Like if somebody was in the military, I think they'd really like this movie because I think they can relate to being given orders no matter what, you're supposed to follow them, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of depth of thinking, it actually does it does really well in one aspect, which is that sort of orders and that sort of thing, and what it's like to be a follower, where you come from.
The struggles the main characters go through in regards to their own depth of thinking.
Right. But when it comes to, does it make you think about other Marvel properties and that sort of thing? Not really. Like the post-credit scenes, sure, but the movie itself, no.
It makes me think like where the Avengers throughout this ordeal, just kind of like which with the reverse in the trailers, which you've seen, which is not a spoiler. During the Avengers movies, it's like where are the Eternals? It kind of makes you think about that. That's the main thing, is like where are the Avengers in this conflict, and then like where were the Eternals in their conflict? So
sure. Well, I would say we covered depth of thinking. The next one is emotional impact. Emotional impact, I thought, was actually one of like the stronger points of the movie because it does make you feel. There is romance and there is heavy romance in this movie. I think that obviously will appeal to most people. That's why love and love stories are in most movies, because something that every audience member can relate to.
Sure, yeah.
And I think in terms of the relationships between each character and within all of them is something that is really good. But in terms of in relation to like the plot or the story, there really is no emotional impact or not a lot of emotional impact when it comes to the plot.
Yeah,
partially because we'll get into this, but partially because of the villain.
Yeah, you see the emotion between the members of this throughout the whole thing. It's well known that Cersei and Icarus have some type of thing, right? I mean, like in the trailers, you see them close. They're closer than a normal two people
and
would be,
that their relationship
us.
is also made clear within the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, exactly, all the way through the end, even through the post-credit scenes. Without spoiling it, you see that emotional impact and the decisions the characters make because of their emotions. Yep. That's from the beginning to the end through the credit scenes and whatever. So,
but when it comes to the plot line itself and the weight of the story, like, do you feel the struggles? Do you feel like the stakes are really high?
The plot I don't think is really like the emotional impact throughout the plot is anything, but definitely between the characters,
sure,
throughout the plot, like just even like not the minor characters or like the big characters, the Icaruses, the Cerseis, you see
the sprites, the Druigs, the Kingo, Fastos is great too. Like all of them have a good. You feel an attachment to each one. I thought that was good. I thought, and like I mentioned when we started this segment, I think that the emotional impact might be the strongest point of the movie, because it is focused around relationships.
As Angelina Jolie said, she did join this to join like a family. So there's that family aspect.
And this is the first family or group hero movie of this phase. So when X-Men and Fantastic Four come out in the future,
Mutants and
Fantastic Four come out, those will be the next ones. But this will be the first one, which was my question that I asked the cast that I was never able to get an answer to, was what was it like being the first family of the phase. But it's fine.
I mean, we're gonna get Guardians 3, and that's gonna be their next family movie,
Guardians Christmas,
and the Guardians Christmas special.
The third section the third critique area is authenticity in relation to what is being depicted. You could be really harsh with this. And so I've seen this said about Eternals, that if you want to make it worse than it is, you can. Like, you can pick this movie apart and hate it, especially if you're a comic book fan. Authenticity, if you want to give them negative points because they changed multiple characters, they gave them gender swaps.
Yeah. Makari, I believe, was...
Ajak was, I believe, a man.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that as long as it's done right.
No, they also changed race, but it had nothing to do with, like, that didn't change the character at all by changing their race or their gender. Yeah. So I really liked the movie in terms of like authenticity. My issue, I guess, is the way the Celestials, like we saw them in the trailer, and the way they're depicted in the movie as well. I think the authenticity of them is a little off, especially compared to the comic books.
It was. So
it's hard not to spoil this section, but we will do our best.
The Celestials are very large, right? Like, they're huge beings. They're massive beings.
Galactus size beings.
Yeah. Authenticity, like, I think the size, like their physical nature isn't consistent.
At some points they look much bigger than other points.
Yeah, and even like you have to refer to like the things you've seen, like Ego. You've seen Ego, Celestial. You've seen Nowhere, Celestial. Like, are those consistent with what we've seen?
So I guess they can kind of change their appearance because Ego is a full planet as well as appear as human.
Right.
So maybe the Celestials, you can get away with that by saying they're choosing to appear differently at each point in time.
Sure.
But I don't think that at the times where they show up in the movie, I don't think that makes sense.
Yeah. So physical nature is in regards to the characters, like the Eternals we have, doesn't matter the physical nature. You can change how someone looks and they can still deliver what they're trying to deliver. But the Celestials, which is not like like it's created to have an appearance, that was probably like, that seems weird to me, like not authentic to what we've been shown, I guess, so far.
I also think the modernizing of each character, that's where another issue where I saw the authenticity kind of drop was
okay, so like I get what you mean, like in the present day.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, yeah. So that being said, I think Icarus was probably spot on. So like he was himself the whole time. Like he was.
Agreed. Yeah,
So
like he was similar to what he would be in the comics the whole time.
yeah, and then like Cersei has became modern, I guess, or
All of them
evolved.
did in their own way.
Yeah.
Try not to spoil.
Yeah. I was trying to think of something how to word this, but yeah, the authenticity is kind of up and down.
It fades in and out. There are certain parts that you could the villain in it is so different than the comics and not explained at all. That honestly, the authenticity of the villain, the villain that is portrayed as the villain, is that it almost a zero in terms of authenticity in relation to the comics.
Icarus for me was like 100%. Like they pulled images, they pulled right out of the comics with him. Like,
so it's like you got S tier and then you got F tier in terms of what you got both sides of the coin. And so I honestly, so that if you were to like give it a score, I feel like 5 is the best you could give it because it does flip.
Yeah, it's up and down.
And then my biggest issue was the modernization. Like in the characters in modern time don't represent, in my opinion, how they would be if the original creators of the characters would have been given the choice of what they would prefer. So just my opinion there.
And I think the many people know that Cersei has like a love triangle. That's well known. And so you see one side of that love triangle, Cersei and Icarus, and I think there should have been more with the other two.
With the third point.
Yeah.
Which I think we'll see more of that in the future.
But I mean, to establish that in this one, I think establish it more in this one.
Basically tease it and then take it and not really talk about it throughout the movie is kind of unfair. The next point that we will talk about is wit or cleverness of writing. So there was, I think,
this is where the critic, this right here, this one is where the critics are destroying it.
Right, which is completely wrong in my opinion.
Right.
I heard at least 4 audible points during the movie where others in the theater were laughing outside of myself.
Yeah.
So in a 180 minute out-ish, 160 minute, that's somebody laughing every 40 minutes. So somebody that's an audible laugh from somebody every 40 minutes in a movie.
Yeah, and I mean, with Marvel movies, they have the serious points and they have the funny points. And
there's one character that steals 3 of those 4 moments, and I personally laughed at least 6 times.
For sure. I think the Game of Thrones characters did really well. They were both humorous.
Absolutely.
So they had a lot of the
Kumail Nanjiani was
Kingo
the funniest. Kingo was the funniest person in the movie.
Yeah, and then like it's the one where off track where he's like, nope. That was so without spoilers. That's funny too. But that made me laugh.
And in terms of wit, so like outside of funniness, when we're talking about just like creativity, wit, and cleverness, this isn't spoiling anything, but Druig has a monologue at like 2 separate points in the movie. Both times, if you were in like a talkative room, both times would have been good enough to silence the room.
Yeah.
Like Druig, spoiler, this is a spoiler. Druig was my favorite character. Druig was my favorite character by a long shot. Druig and Makari both, but Druig, it was and Gilgamesh. I was a big fan of Gilgamesh, but Druig 100%. And Gilgamesh also super funny. So
they have their humor, they have their serious characters, they have their funny characters.
I think Cersei might be the only person that didn't make me laugh, but Sprite did, Gilgamesh did, Thena did, Kingo did, Dane Whitman did.
Yeah. Icarus was funny.
Icarus did. Yeah, I think everybody but Cersei got me to laugh once throughout the movie. So that just the critics are being harsh on this movie for, first of all, a lot of people are criticizing it because it has LGBT representation and it has an interracial love scene. First of all, it's 2021. Come on.
Yeah. And here's another wit or cleverness of the writing. I don't think that was necessarily needed, though.
The love scene?
Yeah.
It was not. 100%.
I was like, why is that in that? Why is it in the movie?
They're also refusing to take out the LGBT scene because there is one.
I thought all of the LGBT representation in this movie was tasteful.
It was right. If you are offended by that sort of thing, it is not enough to offend you, in my opinion.
No. No.
And I'm not offended by it. Joe's not offended by it.
No.
Like, there's nothing wrong with it at all. So
No.
in the movie, they are refusing to remove it for other countries that want it removed, and they're refusing to remove it. However, it is written into the movie where if you cut out that whole scene, you almost lose nothing in terms of story. Like if you there's one segment that it applies to the story that it is necessary, but you take that could have been put in otherwise. So it's interesting to me that they're refusing to get rid of a scene that seems like it was written with the ability to get removed.
Right.
And then the love scene
makes sense.
That wasn't
bizarre.
necessary. It was obvious that those two characters were in a relationship or in love with each other without that needed. I think it was just because, and I mentioned this to Joe immediately after the movie, everybody in that movie is absolutely beautiful. And like, I get it, the Eternals were created, so they should be specimens, and it's Hollywood, so everybody's good looking in Hollywood. But it is probably partially why they had a sex scene, I think, is because everybody in that movie is so good looking.
And I think Chloe Zhao is the director. I think she's trying to like break the barrier, right? Like break the barrier and
bring in some new
things haven't been done before. And some things are great, some things hit, and some things miss. So I think that's
the sex scene is new and breaking, but wasn't needed. So like, you can call these new things to stay like on track and make it not as much of a tangent. You can call these things that they haven't tried before clever, but in terms of execution,
throughout the whole story, cleverness to write the whole story and include these little bits, that's where you fail. In regards to like the whole thing, it's a good story if you
absolutely. And then in terms of wit, I loved it. So I'm not sure how the people listening to this want to take that, but I don't think anything that they tried new, LGBT love scenes, anything like that, I don't think that hurts the movie at all.
I lost my thought in regards to the things that hit, things that missed. The LGBT thing was like I said, it was tasteful, and it was done good. It was done great. Like for the representation, if people get offended, that's their own problem. Like, you have to try with the LGBT representation as early on as possible, because you've got Marvel has more of that coming up. So if you're getting offended by this now, you're going to see more of it regardless. You've got Tessa Thompson's Valkyrie, who is
Thor: Love and Thunder will also have LGBT in it. Star-Lord is already considered part of LGBT.
Whether it's male or female or aliens, it doesn't matter. He's different species, different genders. And then you've got Wiccan and Hulkling coming up. So you've got America Chavez, I believe, is as well. So,
and you already have actors part of the LGBT community that are playing characters, even if those characters aren't. All these negative reviews for this movie in terms of LGBT
representation, 48% I think it is at now, is definitely not worth.
It's not worth 48% at all. It is better than that.
If look at the audience scores, because that's us. That's us. We're the people. It's at 80-something%, which is very respectable. But it's not Black Panther or whatever. But
it's not Black Panther. It's not the Doctor Strange episode of What If. It's not Shang-Chi level, but it's also not Iron Man 2, Black Widow, Thor 2. It's not one of those. So to bring it back, wit and cleverness of writing, misses at some points, hits at some points. I love the attempt. I love the trying. So. And the last thing is originality. Again, we mention this every time. Originality, it's hard when it's a product that you're taking that somebody else made already. Right. But in terms, I think we covered it there. Honestly, like, we don't really need to go too much. Chloe Zhao tried a bunch of new things. They switched characters. They gave gender swaps, race swaps, and they tried to do basically two stories at once. Gave us a new version of basically the villain is completely different from the comics. They added things to characters, and then they also went 100% with one or two characters. So in my terms of originality, they killed it. I would say probably the second best thing so far in the movie.
I keep going back to Icarus, but Icarus is one of those like he's kind of been the face of the Eternals. And so like you get the comic book covers with him on it, and you see those direct, like, it's spot on to what those comic book covers look like. And that's you have to have that kind of those moments. The only thing that's different is he's got dark hair.
So. And even then it's like dark or darker blonde.
Yeah, and you can't make it's hard to make those exact costumes as vibrant as they were in the comics. Hence the Scarlet Witches is more maroon instead of like pink.
I don't know how else to show it. Like, yeah, they don't look the same,
Yeah, they're
but
not gonna look this. I mean, they're not gonna look the same.
and like the size of the Eternals or the Celestials.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
like
that's one issue we had was
I'm just saying, like I think they did a good job with originality. I think
yeah,
that was
they did good.
outside of the emotional impact. I would do emotional impact, originality with the cleverness of writing, then probably depth of thinking, and then authenticity. Now we kind of did an overall already, but we can do a quick overall before giving it our scores. I think you should definitely go see it because the current critic reviews are swaying people a little bit. Never let a review tell you whether or not you want to see a movie. If you want to see a movie or are thinking about it, just go see it. It's 2.5 hours, and if you don't like it, then you know that maybe this current new wave, honestly, maybe it just means that maybe Chloe Zhao's films aren't for you, or maybe it means that certain movie types aren't for you. But I think if you're a fan of Marvel, if you're a fan of, specific actors, especially if like that they're in this movie, I think you'll like it. I think you'll enjoy it. I think at worst, the people that go in with low expectations are leaving thinking this movie's at worst a 6.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think a lot of people, a lot of the world sees these ratings, and that's their mindset going in. So they're like, "Oh, all right, this movie sucks. It's not going to go in. It's not going to be good." So then they go into it, and then regardless of like if they enjoy parts of the movie, their brain already thinks they don't like it.
Yeah.
So
that wasn't good.
Yeah. I want to say what the critics say because then I'll seem better. But no.
And there was a group in front of us when we go down the stairs, and there was somebody like walking out the door. There was a group in front of us that said the same thing we did. I can't believe that movie was rated so bad.
Yeah,
it wasn't that bad.
No, yeah, for sure.
Overall, so I think I gave Venom like a 6.9, 7 point something, somewhere around there. I gave Shang-Chi almost like a 9.
Yeah.
Love Shang-Chi. I would put this movie around where I put Venom. I would probably give it like 7.5. I think maybe a low, like a 7 to 7.5.
The post-credit scene in Venom and the post-credit scene or scenes in this one almost make they make the movie almost. So like, I mean, they don't make the movie, but like if the movies were 7.5, 8 and 9s out of 10 or whatever, these post-credit scenes are all 10s. So
what would you give the movie?
You gave it a 7.5.
I said 7 to 7.5, somewhere around there. I think if just like the other movies, if you gave this movie a 7, I wouldn't fight you. If you gave this movie 7.5, I'd be like, oh, you must have liked it.
Okay, so in regards to Venom, I thought Venom there was too much of a story, and they skipped out a lot. They should have had more of a story in Venom.
You thought the opposite this time?
And I thought the opposite. I thought there was a lot of this is a long movie, but there's a lot of points that didn't need to happen.
Sure.
And then in Venom, it was a short movie, and there was probably more things that needed to happen.
Sure.
But I think I did enjoy it better because I enjoyed the thing with Venom. I enjoyed was the post-credit scenes, and I enjoyed more of the movie rather than the post-credit scene.
I think that's fair. I do think I enjoyed this a little bit more than I enjoyed Venom, and I love Venom.
Yeah, so if you gave Venom a 6.9, I think you're right around it in 7 to 7.5. I think that's right. I think it's right around its like audience score. When all's all said and done, and this movie's been out for a month, it's probably going to be around that high 70s.
Sure.
This is at like 81 right now, I believe. So yeah, I think that's fair. 7 to 7.5. That's what I'd give it to.
So there's our score for it. We're almost out of time here, so I will let everybody know. If you want to see the movie, go see it. If this review helped you, I really hope it did. Check out our podcast if you want more information like this, and if you like this video, like, subscribe, all that sort of jazz. Eternals was better than everybody's giving it. I enjoyed the movie, so go support the movie.
Enjoyed the movie. Yeah.
GG.
I love you all.
Love you all. Thank you all for the support.